Welcome back to Silent Paws and Brave Hearts. The rain hadn't stopped in 11 days. Marcus Bennett stood at the cracked window of his small rental house in Astoria, Oregon, watching water stream down the glass in endless rivulets. Behind him, on a threadbare couch covered with an old army blanket, his 4-year-old granddaughter Emma slept curled against Ranger, the 8-year-old German shepherd whose gray and white muzzle rested protectively across her small body. The dog's eyes were open, watchful, always watchful. In Marcus's weathered hand, the paper trembled slightly. Not from age, though at 68 his body carried the weight of decades, but from the cold reality of the words printed in bold red letters. Final notice. Eviction proceedings. 14 days. 14 days to find $1,500. He had $350. Marcus set the notice down on the kitchen table, careful not to make noise. His left leg throbbed where shrapnel from a 1973 mission still lived beneath the scar tissue, a constant reminder of a war that had ended decades ago but never truly left him. He limped to the coffee maker, a Salvation Army find from 2 years back, and poured the last of yesterday's coffee into a chipped mug. The money he had was supposed to fix the truck's brakes, the truck he needed to drive Emma to the free preschool program 30 minutes away, the truck that might not pass inspection next month. Every choice was impossible. Emma stirred on the couch, and Ranger lifted his head immediately, his dark eyes finding Marcus across the small room. The dog had been with him for 6 years, pulled half-starved from a dumpster behind a VA clinic. Now, Ranger was family, the only other soul who understood what it meant to keep watch over something precious. Marcus moved to the table and sat down slowly, his leg grateful for the rest. The local community newspaper lay folded beside the eviction notice, a free publication he'd grabbed at the grocery store, more out of habit than hope. He opened it now, scanning the classifieds without really seeing them. Yard sales, furniture, cars he couldn't afford. Then, in the bottom corner of page 7, a small bordered ad. Public storage auction, ABC Storage, Highway 30, Saturday 10 a.m. Delinquent units, cash only. Marcus stared at the ad for a long moment. Storage auctions were gambles. He'd seen a television show once, years ago, where people bid on abandoned units hoping to find treasure. Mostly they found junk. It was foolish, reckless, exactly the kind of desperation move a man made when he had no moves left. He looked at Emma, at Ranger, at the eviction notice. Foolish was all he had. Saturday morning arrived cold and gray, the rain reduced to a persistent mist that clung to everything like grief. Marcus wrapped Emma in the same army blanket she'd been sleeping with, olive drab, worn soft from decades of use, and carried her to the truck. Ranger jumped into the bed without being asked, settling into his usual spot behind the cab where he could see everything. ABC Storage sat on a desolate stretch of Highway 30, a sprawling complex of orange roll-up doors and cracked asphalt. 20 or so people milled around the main office, professional bidders with calculators and hand trucks, dressed in waterproof jackets and boots that actually matched. Marcus stepped out of the truck wearing his old navy pea coat, Emma still drowsy against his shoulder, Ranger at his heel. He felt the eyes on him immediately, the judgment, the dismissal. He was an outsider here, a man who didn't belong. The auctioneer, a thick-shouldered man with a clipboard, moved down the row of units calling out numbers. Marcus followed at a distance, listening to the rapid-fire bidding, watching units go for $200, $500, $800. Each time the door rolled up, the crowd surged forward, flashlights clicking on, voices murmuring assessments. Then they reached Unit 1113. The auctioneer cut the lock and heaved the door upward. The smell hit first: decay, mildew, rot. The crowd recoiled instinctively. Inside, stacked floor to ceiling, wall to wall, were black trash bags, dozens of them. Some split open, revealing what looked like old clothes, newspapers, genuine garbage. Unit 1113, the auctioneer announced without enthusiasm. Delinquent 6 months. Contents as is. Do I have $50? Silence. The professional bidders turned away, already moving toward the next unit. Someone muttered, "Literal trash." Laughter followed. But Marcus didn't move. His eyes had caught something the others missed. In the back right corner, partially obscured by the bags, sat an olive-green canvas duffel, military issue, and securing its top was a length of paracord tied in a perfect bowline knot, the kind of knot a Navy SEAL learned in week 1 of training, the kind of knot you tied in the dark, underwater, with your life depending on it. That knot didn't belong in a pile of garbage. $50, Marcus heard himself say. The auctioneer looked surprised. "I have 50. Do I hear 75? From the back of the dispersing crowd, a younger man in an expensive jacket glanced back, noticed Marcus's interest, and smirked. 100. Marcus's jaw tightened. He had $350 total. This was madness. 125, Marcus said. The young man's smirk widened. 175. Emma shifted against Marcus's shoulder, her small hand gripping his coat collar. Ranger pressed against his leg, solid and steady. 200, Marcus said quietly. A pause. The young man studied Marcus, saw the worn coat, the sleeping child, the desperation, and shrugged. "He can have the trash." "Sold for $200, the auctioneer declared, plus $17 cleaning deposit, cash or card. Marcus counted out $217 in 20s and 1s, his last reserves vanishing into the auctioneer's hand. He was given a receipt, a padlock key, and 48 hours to clear the unit. As the crowd dispersed, Marcus stood alone in front of Unit 113, staring at the wall of black bags, wondering if he'd just destroyed his granddaughter's last chance at stability. Ranger stepped forward and sniffed the air. Then, with deliberate purpose, the German shepherd walked directly to the military duffel in the back corner and sat down beside it, his eyes fixed on Marcus. "Pay attention," those eyes said. "This matters." Marcus borrowed a dolly from the storage office and began the slow work of clearing the unit. Emma sat on the tailgate of the truck, wrapped in her blanket, watching silently as her grandfather hauled bag after bag into the weak November light. The first 5 bags were exactly what they appeared to be, actual trash. Rotted newspapers, moldy towels, broken kitchen items. Marcus's heart sank with each one. But the 6th bag was different. When he opened it, instead of rot, he found fabric, expensive fabric, silk dresses in protective garment bags, cashmere coats with designer labels still attached, leather handbags, the kind Marcus had seen in department store windows with price tags in the thousands. His hands stilled. The 7th bag contained men's suits, Italian wool, custom tailored. The 8th bag held a uniform. Marcus lifted it carefully from the bag, and his breath caught. It was a United States Army dress uniform, meticulously preserved in plastic, and on the shoulder, 4 stars, a general's uniform. Ranger barked once, sharp, insistent. Marcus looked up. The dog had moved to the far wall of the unit and was pawing at what appeared to be a solid panel. But when Marcus approached and pressed his hand against it, the panel shifted. It wasn't attached. It was camouflage. Behind it was a leather satchel. Marcus pulled it free and unzipped it with shaking hands. Inside were 12 microcassette tapes, each labeled with dates spanning 3 years. Beneath them, a leather-bound journal, its pages filled with careful handwriting. Marcus opened to the first page. "If you're reading this, I'm dead. My name is Victor Hartwell, General, United States Army, retired, and my children are thieves." That night, after Emma was asleep, Marcus sat at his kitchen table with the journal and a cassette player he'd found at a thrift store years ago. He inserted the first tape and pressed play. The voice that emerged was cultured, measured, but edged with profound sadness. Recording 1, June 14th. "I had a stroke last month. My speech is affected, but my mind remains clear. David and Catherine have begun proceedings to have me declared incompetent. They want control of my assets. I've watched them my entire life choose money over integrity, and now, in my final chapter, they cannot even wait for me to die with dignity." Marcus listened transfixed as General Victor Hartwell narrated the systematic betrayal by his own children, how they visited not with love but with legal documents, how they hired doctors willing to declare him mentally unfit for the right price, how they spoke about him in the third person while he sat in the room, aware of everything. "I have hidden what matters most," the general's voice continued. "They will inherit the house, the cars, the visible wealth. But my legacy, my true treasures, I have concealed where only someone with patience and discipline will find them. Someone who understands the value of things not measured in currency." The tapes went on, 12 recordings, a dead man's testimony against greed. And in the journal, detailed instructions. The trash bags are camouflage, a test. Those driven by greed will see only worthlessness and walk away. But someone with discipline, someone who understands military strategy, will recognize the pattern. They will dig deeper. They will find what I've hidden. And if they have honor, they will know what to do with it. Marcus turned the pages, his chest tight. "My medals are in the duffel bag, my wife's jewelry is in the false bottom of the black trunk, and my emergency fund, $40,000 in $100 bills, is in the tin soldier." Marcus's hands trembled. Tin soldier? He spent the next hour searching through the remaining bags with Ranger's help. The dog led him to a large, decorative nutcracker statue, nearly 3 feet tall, dressed as a Revolutionary War soldier. It was heavy, ornate, the kind of thing that sat in a mansion's foyer during Christmas. Marcus examined it carefully. At the base, hidden beneath a decorative panel, was a small latch. He opened it. Inside, wrapped in oilcloth, were stacks of $100 bills, old bills, carefully preserved. Marcus counted them twice. $40,000. Enough to solve every problem he had. Enough to keep Emma safe for years. He sat on the floor of the storage unit, surrounded by trash bags and treasure, and put his face in his hands. The next morning, Marcus walked to the landlord's office and paid the $1,500 in back rent, in cash. Then he returned home, placed the remaining $38,500 in an envelope, and wrote across the front, "Not mine, to be returned." He couldn't keep it. It wasn't his. The general had meant it for someone, but Marcus didn't believe that someone was him. Not yet. He'd borrowed $1,500 to save Emma. That debt would be repaid. But the rest, that required honor to claim. Instead, Marcus began photographing the designer clothes and handbags. He listed them online, one by one, on resale sites. The work was painstaking. Each item had to be authenticated, described, shipped. The profits were small, $50 here, $200 there, but they were honest. For the first time in months, money trickled in instead of bleeding out. Ranger watched it all with patient eyes, and Emma, slowly, began to smile more. 3 weeks later, Marcus made a decision.
The general's medals, the Purple Heart, the Silver Star, the service ribbons representing a lifetime of sacrifice, didn't belong in a storage unit. They belonged in a place of honor. He contacted the Columbia River Maritime Museum, which had a military history wing. The curator, Dr. Camille Foster, was a retired Army colonel herself. When Marcus explained what he'd found, she insisted on meeting him immediately. She arrived at his small house on a gray afternoon, her face reverent as Marcus presented the uniform and medals. "General Hartwell," she whispered. "I knew of him, a giant in the military community. These are priceless." "They should be displayed," said Marcus simply. "People should remember him." Dr. Foster nodded slowly. "His family should be notified. It's protocol."
Marcus hesitated, then nodded. "Do what's right." David Hartwell arrived 4 days later. Marcus was in the backyard helping Emma build a small fort out of cardboard boxes when Ranger's low growl froze him in place. The German shepherd stood rigid, facing the side gate, every muscle coiled. A man in an expensive gray suit pushed through the gate without knocking. He was in his late 50s, impeccably dressed, his face sharp with fury. "You're the thief," David Hartwell said coldly. Marcus straightened slowly. "I paid for that storage unit legally. You stole my father's property. I want it back, all of it." Emma, frightened, ran to Marcus and buried her face against his leg. Ranger moved between them and David, his lips pulling back to reveal teeth, a sound rumbling deep in his chest that promised violence. David stopped walking. "Call off your dog," he demanded. "He's protecting my granddaughter," Marcus said quietly. "You came onto my property uninvited. You scared a child. Ranger's doing exactly what he should." David's eyes flicked to the German shepherd, whose focus had narrowed to David's throat with predatory precision. The lawyer, for all his wealth and arrogance, understood immediately that one word from Marcus would end him. "What do you want?" David asked through clenched teeth. "Come inside," Marcus said. "Let's talk." In the small living room, Marcus played the tapes. David Hartwell sat rigid on the couch, listening to his dead father's voice catalog every betrayal, every manipulation, every attempt to steal his dignity before death could claim him naturally. When the 12th tape ended, silence filled the room. "This could destroy your family's reputation," Marcus said quietly. "Your father documented everything, legal manipulation, elder abuse, it's all here." David's face had gone pale. "What do you want? Money?" "Your father left $40,000 hidden in that unit. I borrowed $1,500 to keep my granddaughter off the street. I'll pay it back. The rest," he slid the envelope across the table, "is yours. I'm returning it." David stared at the envelope like it was a snake. "You're giving it back?" "I wasn't mine to keep." "Then what the hell do you want?" Marcus met his eyes. "Your father set up a test. He hid his legacy in trash because he knew you'd never lower yourself to search through it. He wanted it to go to someone who understood honor. I'll give you everything, the tapes, the journal, the medals, and I'll never speak of any of this. In exchange, I want $100,000 and a full education trust fund for my granddaughter Emma, enough to guarantee her future." David's laugh was bitter. "Blackmail." "Negotiation," Marcus corrected. "I'm offering you your father's legacy and your family's dignity. In return, I'm asking for my granddaughter's security. You can afford it. I can't." The lawyer's eyes narrowed, calculating. Then slowly he nodded. "Deal." They shook hands, David's grip cold and resentful, Marcus's steady and firm. But when David reached for the envelope of cash, Marcus pulled it back.
"This part," Marcus said quietly, "has nothing to do with our deal. This is me returning money that wasn't mine. $38,500. I could have kept it. You'd never have known. But your father trusted that whoever found his legacy would have honor. I'm proving him right." For the first time, something flickered in David Hartwell's eyes that might have been shame. He took the envelope silently and left without another word. Ranger watched him go, then returned to Emma's side, his duty complete. 2 months later, the small music shop in downtown Astoria smelled of wood polish and old brass. Marcus stood at the counter, holding the porcelain ballerina music box Emma had claimed from the storage unit. It had been broken, the mechanism silent, the ballerina's arm snapped off. The shop owner, an elderly craftsman with gentle hands, had worked on it for 6 weeks. "She's ready," he said, placing the music box on the counter. Marcus wound the key carefully. The mechanism caught, turned, and a delicate melody filled the shop, tinkling and pure, the sound of childhood and innocence and things that could be made whole again. That evening, Marcus presented it to Emma. Her small face, so often serious and watchful, transformed. Her eyes went wide, her mouth opened in a perfect O of wonder. And when the ballerina began to spin, Emma laughed, a sound Marcus realized he hadn't heard in far too long. She threw her arms around his neck. "It's beautiful, Grandpa." Marcus held her close, his throat tight. "Just like you, sweetheart." Ranger lay at their feet, his gray muzzle resting on his paws, his eyes half closed in contentment. The rain still fell outside, but inside the small house, there was warmth, there was safety, there was home.
Marcus had learned something profound in those trash bags and hidden compartments, that value wasn't always visible, that honor couldn't be purchased, and that sometimes the greatest treasures were the ones you chose to protect rather than claim. General Victor Hartwell had left a test, and Marcus Bennett, a 68-year-old Navy SEAL with a bum leg, a sleeping granddaughter, and a loyal dog, had passed it. Not by finding the money, but by knowing when to give it back. Emma wound the music box again, and the ballerina danced, and the world, for this one perfect moment, was exactly as it should be. If this story touched your heart, if you believe in honor over greed, and if you know that loyalty, whether from a grandfather, a dog, or a stranger doing what's right, is the truest treasure we can find, then please subscribe to Silent Paws and Brave Hearts. Hit that notification bell, because every week we bring you stories of courage, sacrifice, and the unbreakable bonds that define us. Leave a comment below telling us what Marcus's choice meant to you. And remember, the greatest wealth isn't what we take, it's what we choose to protect. Until next time, stay brave, stay loyal, and never stop believing in the quiet heroes among us.